Okay, go.
Hi, Tim from FATRIDE. I've been pretty quiet this summer. I haven't posted a lot or haven't done a lot of uploads. I've been riding a lot. I've been riding the fat bike a lot. I've been testing. I've been evaluating and just having a good time. Really enjoying the Rails to Trail system, learning that, and just one journey after the other. Today I wanted to go into a subject, just kind of do a real kind of simplistic podcast on the subject. Most writers, you know, all writers hear it from the outside, but we're all in that moment. We just let it kind of slide off, and we just don't deal with it. But being at the time, I was 59, going to 60. I ran into it face first, and I wish anything looking back that I would have had paid attention, or I would have had a video to go to that could have talked, not in medical, because you can go to YouTube and you can spend hours, and totally misdiagnose yourself, and next thing you know, you're seeing the absolute worst case that's truly not aligning to you. So it's just a real easy place to gain a lot of stress, and for me, it was like that was the last thing I needed. It was. Let me start it with this. I am not a doctor. I'm not going to speak in medical terms. I just, on the other side of it, I'm not going to go into it like a high school sex ed class and have that kind of description and terminology. But it's just coming from me as a 61-year-old cyclist that's been doing this for a while. And I thought I could share this story because I really believe and I know it's a small niche, the whole cycling and prostate issues. And initially it's like, well, yeah, there's a very small niche for it, older cyclists. But to tell you the truth, after being through it, it really opened my eyes to how wide the niche is, really. I mean, you're looking at the older cyclist, you're looking at the older cyclist's wife, you're looking at young cyclists that could truly prevent a lot of stress and anxiety. A young cyclist's wife. You're looking at brothers and sisters, someone in their life, if they're a cyclist and they're older or older male, they can absolutely align to this subject. Let me start off with for reference, I am a cyclist that's been racing since the training wheels came off my bike. And so I've spent numerous amount of hours on that saddle, from training and racing and whatnot. So that's kind of my background. You can reference that. Um, but let me start. It was May 2023, and I had been putting in base miles all winter long. Had a lot of low zone 2 type miles, but a lot of miles on the saddle, on the trainer, in the basement. Well, in early May, I think that weekend, that first weekend in May, the weather broke, and all of a sudden it was 60 some degrees. The sun was out, and I was excited to get outside, from being in the basement all winter long. And I had made a kind of my goal that year was to um, stay seated on all the climbs. Try to really use, the shifting or the cadence and high torque or high power on the climbs instead of standing up and burning a lot of muscle and short-term efforts. I was going to try to be more efficient. So that was kind of my outside goal for this summer. But that first weekend, I went out and I probably rode it because I was just really, the sun was out, the weather was perfect, the trail was just right. And I went out and was having a good time. And I probably rode a lot longer than I probably should have. And I also probably did too many high uh, power type efforts. But when I got home that night, I mean, I didn't. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel like overdid myself. Nothing like that. It was like I really just enjoyed myself. But I got home and I noticed that that night when I went to urinate, that there seemed like there was a restriction. It was the stream was just off. But in my cyclist head, it was like it could have been anything. It could have been something I ate. It could have been the way I just happened to be on the saddle, the time, the shift from going from uh, low intensity to high intensity. So I didn't give it much more than a moment of thought. I went into that week back to my training every night on the trainer, and each night I kind of noticed it was going to a different level. It hadn't got where it had progressed to where it was, taking me to DEFCON 4 or anything, but I was clearly noticing instead of it progressively getting better, it was progressively getting worse. But I still, if you're a cyclist, you know exactly what I mean. The whole intent of getting better is pushing yourself beyond that next threshold, pushing yourself past what you thought was uncomfortable before. So yeah, in my mindset, I didn't give it much thought. The next weekend, same thing. It just happened to be a nice weekend, so I went outside and I put in another. Probably put way too many high efforts or too big of intensity type efforts, but I felt great. I didn't feel any pain. I wasn't in like something I noticed like a muscle soreness or anything of that nature. But when I came home, sure enough, it had taken another step. And you know what? I still didn't hit the panic button. I still didn't even have a conversation with my wife with anything. So it wasn't until the work week, I think it was Tuesday or something of that, that I noticed that night I woke up like I had to go to the bathroom. You know the feeling when you're driving down the highway and you're pushing those rest stops. You just go one more, get a little more miles in, and when you finally stop, you're about ready to explode. That's what it felt like. Well, I got up, stumbled to the bathroom, which is pretty unusual for me to get up in the middle of the night. Stumbled to the bathroom and I couldn't go. I'm thinking, what the? And I stood there. I sat. I just, well, I know from all the running I did and trying to stay hydrated, I had put a lot of fluids down. So I know that I had a lot of fluids in my system in my bladder. But I finally just kind of gave up on it, went and laid back down, and I was uncomfortable. I was getting hot. Just finally, I gave up and I said, "All right, I'm going to go to the bathroom again," and nothing. I mean, literally nothing. And but so now it's starting to play with me emotionally of like, what the hell's going on now? I don't feel any pain. There's nothing indicating that I have a problem other than this is the thing that's really, in my face at this point. Well, I spent the whole night that way. Every few minutes, I get that, where that urge was just at such a point where I thought I was gonna pee my pants if I didn't go to the bathroom. Well, next thing I knew, the alarm clock for work went off. I got up, did my normal shower, got off to work. And my first hour at work, typically, I'm sitting at a desk or in my office, and I'm at the computer just reviewing. Well, I was uncomfortable. I was hot. Couldn't focus, and I would try to go to the bathroom. Of course, it's a public bathroom, multiple stalls. So, as a guy, it's just something. It's no different than being outside and hearing noise from outside, whether it's the birds singing or whatever it is. You got someone in the urinal next to you. You know what that sound is. You know when someone's going to the bathroom. Well, I'm just standing in the urinal. People come in. People go to the bathroom. They flush and they go to wash their hands and they leave, and I'm still standing there. Now I'm getting embarrassed, and I'm starting to get panicked. So after I went back to my desk and I called my wife, and my wife and I have been married for several years. We can talk about anything, but this is very personal. And to get into it, it's very descriptive, and it's just embarrassing. It's hard to go there. I'm 60 years old, and you feel like a little kid, But we finally had a conversation, and from that conversation, I hung up with my wife, and I called to make an appointment with the doctor. And for me, that's a big deal. That's just not my normal workflow for anything of that nature. I called the doctor, and the conversation I had with her, I said, "Hey, I need an appointment." And she's like, "Doctor so and so doesn't have anything available for 3 weeks." And I'm like, and for me to step up and just say no, that was very not normal for me. So I knew that I was definitely at DEFCON 3 at this point. I told her, like, no, this has to be today. I don't care if it's another doctor. I need to get in today. I couldn't imagine what this would look like in a day, much less a week. I had that, and I also had the, hospital emergency, that whole thing being, played in my back of my head. So she did come up with someone that had a slot between two appointments if I can get there fairly soon. And I did. I went straight to the doctor's office, and it was a place that I had been throughout my lifetime, so I was comfortable there. I knew how to get there, da da da. So overall, I couldn't ask for a better situation. But when they finally called me back, the new doctor I'm seeing was a female doctor, and again, it was just it's embarrassing. And you need to be very descriptive. And I'm not a medical profession. I, I don't have those kind of technical terms and everything that to make it sound not like a 12-year-old kid talking about, he's his thing. But through this whole thing, and with me getting embarrassed and the, the stress of it and the anxiety of it, she says, "Well, I need you to get a urine sample." Well, in my head, I literally fucking screamed. I'm screaming in my head. That's the whole goddamn reason I'm here. I can't go to the bathroom. But what came out of my mouth was this soft, "Well, I don't know if I can. I've been just haven't had any success, and that's why I'm here today." And the doctor said, "Well, go to the bathroom, take your time, and we'll go from there." Well, it is a private bathroom or a single bathroom, so I went in there, and now I'm starting to paint all these ugly possible scenarios. Everyone's heard of a friend or someone they've talked to about prostate cancer and the bite. All of a sudden, my head is just spinning, and I'm stressed. I can feel it in my shoulders, and I couldn't go at all. I was in there 10 to 15 minutes, and I finally dribbled enough. And does that sound embarrassing? You're talking about dribbling. I finally went enough to fill the bottom of the cup, just enough to cover the bottom of the cup. And I'm thinking, there's no way that this is going to be enough for a sample. But what do I know? I'm not a medical professional. So I did that routine, went back to the room that I was in, and later she comes in and she notes immediately that my PSA, which I had no goddamn idea what PSA stood for, what it meant, what was connected to it. All I wanted to hear was what I needed to do to resolve this. I need to get on the, something needed to happen soon. But what she didn't say was your PSA was in a normal range. And it seemed to, for her, but doctors are so hard because they're so neutral all the time. It's hard to read them emotionally. But it didn't appear to be like, well, we're sending you to the hospital, or you need to go to the emergency meeting. That didn't come out. So I was slightly hopeful. But she did say, "I've set you an appointment at a urologist in an hour and a half, or what it was. I need you to go directly there." And in my head, from my history, is like, when they're sending you to a specialist, it's usually because there's a procedure or certain tooling that's going to be required to do whatever they feel is next. And then now I'm thinking, a catheter, oh, it's embarrassing, and it's just like stressful, and where's this going to go? And what is this going to look like tomorrow? And it just, the drive there, I call my wife, and she knows me and how I can get spun up and my anxiety, and she said that she was going to meet me at this urologist, and it was huge because to me to have someone there that knew you and on your side, and she's totally wonderful with trying to get trying to distract me and get me kind of from just spinning myself into the ground. And we met, and um, we walked into the office, and the first thing that hit me, I mean, it was like right in your face, right in the window, was every person there was an older gentleman, and they looked like they were in pain, or they'd just been in a battle, or they had just come out of a battle. I mean, they all looked pale, they all looked uncomfortable, and when I even see them walking, they look like, I mean, I'm older, but they were probably in their 70s, 75, 80s. That's what I'm guessing. But it's very clear that all their wives or the ladies that were there with them were, they seemed healthy. They seemed to have pink cheeks. They were able to have a conversation with the person behind the counter. So it was clear that it was the guys. And in my head, I'm thinking, holy shit, did biking do this to me? Did biking push me 10 years, 15 years farther down the road because of being on the saddle? And again, I'm uncomfortable because of where I'm at. I feel like my bladder's full and like I'm going to explode. I got all this mental shit going through my head now. It's really hard to just sit there. Well, as we're sitting there, I noticed a couple of, there's a main bathroom right off the waiting room, and has multiple stalls and whatnot. And with the stress, I'm like, I just couldn't sit there anymore. And with me feeling so uncomfortable, just sitting there was painful. So I got up and went to the restroom. And of course, you know how the urinals have dividers in between. And I went to one of the dividers, or one of the urinals, and I'm sitting there. And again, people come in, people go to the bathroom, people wash their hands, and they leave. And I'm standing in the stall. And I'm just getting stressed out. And not from thinking what this is going to be and what it's going to take to fix it, to just how embarrassed I am of this whole situation. Finally, because I'm so embarrassed, I just give up. I just zip up, wash my hands like I actually did something, and sit back to the floor. And I saw it in my wife's eyes when I stepped out. And I kind of shook my head like, nope. Now every minute feels like an hour because it's just everything about it as we're waiting. We get called finally get called, we go to the room, and we sit there, and right off the bat, there was a young female assistant that came in. And again, it was like, it was going to be embarrassing regardless how who you had this conversation with. But again, I felt like a 12-year-old boy, and 12-year-old boy that's in need of serious someone to help me. Well, we're trying to have a conversation that's very descriptive, and I'm trying to find my words, and sometimes I have word capture issues anyway, so it's just, I'm fumbling, I'm kind of mumbling around. Luckily my wife was helping me out through it, the conversation. And of course they went to, well, we're going to need a urine sample. But this time in my head, I was able to catch myself before I exploded inside and had that response to, I just did a PSA. I remembered those 3 letters. I just had a urine sample at my doctor, and they were like, well, we need our own, and because we won't be able to get that information transferred over fast enough. And I told her, I'm like, look, I just don't think I can go. That's the whole reason why I'm here today. That's why I'm so uncomfortable. And she goes, I have to give it to her. I mean, the empathy, the professionalism, it just gave me a whole new sense of the moment I was in and the people I was working with. And she's like, just go, lock the door, take your time, and just relax, breathe, and just do the best you can, and we'll figure this out. Well, something inside me relaxed. Something finally, because I went in the room and I was able to lock the door. I didn't have people coming in and out. And I finally just started deep breathing. And did I go to the restroom as normal? No, but I gave enough of a sample that it felt like a sample. Back, of course, you have to pass it through the little doorway when you leave the sample. Just everything seems kind of just, oh my God. And I finally go back to the room. She comes back, and the doctor wants her to do a ultrasound of my bladder and my prostate. At any given moment, I thought it couldn't get worse. Well, it just took on a whole new set of worse. I mean, a definition of worse. So that meant stripping down to my boxers, laying back, and dropping my boxers enough that she can use the ultrasound probe with gel. I mean, any other situation, a young female doing any kind of thing like this, I would have been in divorce court. But there's a side of me that's saying, we got to figure that out. We have to figure out what's going on, stay focused, and the other side is embarrassed as hell. I mean, when questions are asked, I'm literally like, oh my God, oh my God. And then you think that's the bad part, and then she's got to wipe all the gel up. I mean, you feel like you're 90 years old and you're in diapers and you're being changed or something. But finally, we got past that. At least I have my boxers back on, and the doctor comes in, and he, absolutely professional. You cannot read anything in his face other than what came to the front almost immediately. Was like, looked at my PSA, and he said, and I finally understood what PSA, what these guys were looking for. PSA, in a very loose way, is just, it's an indicator to them if it's something at a higher and more serious level, like prostate cancer or something of that nature, or if what he described was between genetics and a high percentage of older males, especially turn around 60, will have this problem. It's called an enlarged prostate. And this is where you are today. I'm going to prescribe this. We talked about my diet a little bit. We talked about stretching a little bit. And my wife jumped in and noted that, well, he's a cyclist. He cycles quite a bit. Could this be the problem? And the doctor was very quick to say there's been numerous studies done that they cannot link cycling, being on the saddle like that, and an enlarged prostate. It basically comes down to enlarged prostate. It's just a high percentage of older males, with just the perfect genetics that align to it. And I'm finally settling down. I've taken it from DEFCON 4 down to DEFCON 3. Holy crap, if this is all it is, we're not talking a catheter, we're not talking to an emergency room, and I didn't even care of all the details at this point. It was the way he described it, this is what I need to do to get better. But the word but come up. But you riding on the saddle like that is irritating me, and that is where you are today. I need you off the saddle. And my mind blanked at that point. I literally went into a fog. How many weeks? I didn't even hear how many weeks he said, but I knew it was numerous. And believe me, I was absolutely grateful and thankful, and I couldn't have been more happy that the medical side of things turned out the way they did. But I've been cycling since I was a little kid. It's part of my DNA. And for me to shut it off, and of course, I see the crazy side of that I'm never going to be able to ride again. Just that's where I go with it. And after I do this kind of fog that I'm in, I hear my wife and the doctor kind of closing the conversation, and I pop out of it, and I don't even hesitate. I don't even second think what I'm saying. I just said, or I asked, hey, is it okay if I can stand and ride? And he looked straight at me, and I almost felt like he knew as well as I did that standing up, and this is starting to roll through my head at this point also, is that standing up is usually or normally a very short effort, and it's a something that you're climbing, or it's 5-10 minutes at most. Maybe in a big mountain climb on a road bike it may be 20, but typically it's almost muscle memory that you put in a big effort when you stand, and it's just muscle memory that you sit down to recover. And he goes, yeah, you can ride standing up, but he goes, I do not want you sitting down. And then he kind of put it in my court. You do this, if you sit down and continue this is going to get worse. It's not going to get better. So it's going to be the consequences, you're going to drive the consequences. And we sew things up, and my wife and I in our cars, and we're driving home, and I'm thinking in my head how lucky I am. But on the other side, like I said, this biking is part of who I am. And I honestly, from fitness to exercise, the stress, I mean, it's just something I go to every day as something that's who I am. On the way home, I'm starting to really think about standing and riding. But let me just back up 1 second. Now, when he said from the prescription, at that point, I could care. He could have told me that I would need to chew on a car tire. It didn't matter. I was in such a bad way. I would have, done X, Y, or Z. Are there side effects? Yes, there are side effects. But at that point, I just didn't care. But as things started progressing, it was very clear what the side effects were. And most side effects on different things, you may hit one of them, you may hit a couple of them, or they may be mild. But the side effects, and any male that's been through this prostate issue, they know what medication I'm talking about, Flomax. Side effects is, one of the first line is having a sexual relationship with your partner. And you know what? As a 60-year-old male, even, it was going through that, understanding what it was saying, and actually seeing that there was no ifs, ands, or buts. That was happening. I went through some depression. I still am working through it. I try to, yes, before going to the bathroom, that whole piece of it was drink water, go to the bathroom. That's all I really knew, the whole system. Well, I know a whole lot more now. And what I would lean into, I'm going to hold off on the next part, or the one part with standing, where I went with standing and where that is today, and where I'm at today with my prostate and urination. But again, if I would have had a video that I could have watched, or I could have listened to someone older than me at the time, kind of not give me details, but just I could have clearly changed the direction this whole thing went, the stress level. Oh. But if I look back on it, and what I think that can be helpful, and that's where I'm really sitting down and having this conversation with you, is if I would have had some kind of information going into this, I guarantee that I would have reacted way quicker than I did. Instead of pushing myself into the red and the stress and the anxiety and the crazy, the first time I noticed it, I would have got with the doctor. I would have had some idea that these things are kind of linked. So that's what this video is for. But again, if you're interested, just leave something in a comment noting that you'd like to hear where I'm at today, or how the biking went, or where I was at with the biking. And if you do have a question on the other part, and I know it's public, it's in social media, so if you want to have a private conversation, we can DM, or maybe we can share each other's email and we can talk privately with it. What I will say at this point is, ride fat, have a great week, and we'll talk soon.